The Bills last year had themselves a roller coaster of a season where they went from the talk of the AFC to potentially missing the playoffs by Thanksgiving at 6-6. I was one of those people that said, yeah, they're one of those that are likely going to miss the playoffs because of how crowded the AFC wildcard picture was. But no, they actually changed the narrative. Then they turned things around after their bye week by winning all their remaining home games. Home and road games, apologies, including a Week 18 finale in Miami to snatch away the AFC East from the Miami Dolphins again. So they get the AFC East and they get to host 2 playoff games as the number 2 seed. They're back in that position. And in their playoff run, they easily disposed of the Pittsburgh Steelers in the wild card game. And standing in their way, once again, if they wanted to reach the AFC Championship game, was the Kansas City Chiefs. Only this time, the Bills were on home turf. So when they came to that game, their best hopes of reaching said AFC Championship game and possibly the Super Bowl, well, let's just say it went wide right. Yep, that's right. The Bills' hopes once again went wide right against the Kansas City Chiefs. And I'm not talking just figuratively, but literally, because they're an extra field goal away from taking the lead or actually tying the game, if I remember correctly. But no, the Tyler Bass's kick literally went wide right. The words that no one wants to hear down in Buffalo. Yeah, it missed just like that. And the Bills were once again sent home packing by the Chiefs. So if you were the Bills, it became evident that something serious had to be changed. And unfortunately, one of those changes was not the head coach, Sean McDermott. So they did make some serious changes throughout the offseason if they wanted to make a serious run at the AFC Championship and the Super Bowl. So what they did first was name interim offensive coordinator Joe Brady as the permanent coordinator, replacing Ken Dorsey, who was fired mid-season last year. And they also promoted linebackers coach Bobby Bayich to defensive coordinator. So they actually didn't have a proper defensive coordinator last year, but now they do have one. So also going away is receiver Stephon Diggs. He got traded to the Houston Texans just during free agency in return for next year's second-round pick. So Stephon Diggs was actually not doing a whole lot after the coordinator change. And I'm a little curious why that was. Maybe it was an injury. Maybe something was not right between him and Josh Allen. Either way, what a missed opportunity between those two to finally reach the Super Bowl together and possibly win one. They also released various key players to clear their large salary cap bill, such as like Jordan Poyer, Sierra Neal, and Tre'Davious White. So those are a lot of players, especially there was a lot of players on that red salary cap bill that they had to clear out because, well, they weren't performing up to expectations anymore. So for the Buffalo Bills, some of the other moves that they made throughout the offseason, they also lost players like Gabriel Davis to the Jacksonville Jaguars, who I feel like after they gave him another contract, he didn't really perform up to expectations. I felt like he had that one good year in 2021, and then he fell off after that. They also lost one of their key edge rushers in Leonard Floyd to the 49ers, and then defensive tackle Jordan Phillips to the Giants. So one key piece of that pass rush is now gone, and were they going to try to replace him? We'll see. But they did try to replace Gabe Davis and Stephon Diggs with adding the likes of Mac Hollins, Curtis Samuel, and Marcus Valdez-Scantling. They also added a safety in Mike Edwards from the Kansas City Chiefs. So at least you have some Super Bowl winning experience on that team. And then offensive lineman La'el Collins from the Bengals, or at least that's where he last played, because La'el Collins was out of the league for at least this past season, if I remember correctly. And then when you look at the draft, that's where they did their dirty work, and that's where they potentially could get their top receiver in Keon Coleman from Florida State. And then you look at other moves that they made, like safety Cole Bishop from Utah, so that secures their deep back half of the field. And then defensive tackle Dwayne Carter from Duke, running back Ray Davis from Kentucky, and in center Cedric Van Pran from Georgia. So when you look at all the moves that they made, especially at the receiver spot because, well, they traded away Stephon Diggs to the Texans because, yeah, this offseason for the Bills, it was solid. It was solid that they made some decent moves to try and address all the losses, all the cuts they had to make. There's still some questions to be had with this team. Again, one of those questions surrounds the receiver spot because Stephon Diggs is one of the big names, and not just in the NFL, but especially for this Bills team. He was the brain. He was a brain trust for this receiver group, and especially for Josh Allen. And so is gone Gabriel Davis. So I don't know where the production's going to come from. They're going to try to replace him with Curtis Samuel and Keon Coleman. Coleman being a rookie, he's going to have to get some reps in. But other than those two, there isn't much depth behind those two. And I mean, again, there's Mac Hollins, but that's pretty much it. And then when you look at it, the other thing, the Bills' injury-plagued defense from last year, it's a little bit stronger. A little bit stronger before that disaster, but there's some questions up front with the pass rush with Gregory Rousseau and Von Miller. And then, yeah, there are some things that have to be answered when it comes to this Bills team. So looking at some of the key games for this Bills team that's trying to become a 5-time defending AFC East champion, and probably more than that, you look at the game in Miami in week 2. You're going to face the Miami Dolphins right away out of the gate and try to get a key divisional win very early in the season. And then you go back home to face the Jacksonville Jaguars and Trevor Lawrence and try to rack up as many key wins as possible, which continue along with a 3-game road trip against, well, even more but potential AFC playoff contenders in the Baltimore Ravens, the Houston Texans, and the New York Jets, all on the road. That's a daunting gauntlet when you still have questions about this team. Speaking of questions with this team, are they going to finally take off some pressure off of Josh Allen? Because the last couple of years, you could just say at this point, ever since Josh Allen was drafted by this team, they had to make everything about Josh Allen. And what I'm saying is, Josh Allen has basically had to carry this team off his back. He's had to do everything, whether it's whether it's be running back, whether it's like having to make some serious off-script plays, which is not a bad thing for a quarterback, but it's like you have to do every single time because your offensive coordinator can't dial up anything good for you. And it's not a slight at his previous coordinator, Ken Dorsey, but I just felt like ever since Brian Dable left, it's just like, damn, it's been something. There's been something off with Josh Allen. Like they had to do something to take some pressure off of him, and I feel like maybe James Cook comes along at running back. Maybe the running back that they drafted, he suddenly breaks out. Maybe they form a 1-2 punch. But either way, they got to find some way to take some pressure off of Josh Allen. Hopefully, Joe Brady dials up some plays to, take some pressure off him, make him pass more. Don't force too many off-script plays where he has to run out of the backfield. It's like, just do anything to try to further prevent any injury risks to your franchise guy. Like, they're very fortunate that Josh Allen hasn't gotten injured, like, running the ball so much. Like, they're very lucky he's a tough dude out there. And then the offensive line, how's that going to round out? Because it was actually a very solid group out there. It's just a matter, they had some key losses via release and free agency signings, but they did manage to hold them up with some of those free agency additions. So it'll be interesting how that rounds out. So for the Buffalo Bills, I mentioned that they're paying the price initially when it came to their offseason a couple months ago, because they didn't get the job done in the playoffs and they had to let some players go because they didn't do such. But they picked up some solid pieces on both sides of the ball in free agency and the draft. So it's going to keep them competitive. And what's also going to keep them competitive is Josh Allen, of course. But they got to have better injury luck and not force Allen into doing everything himself in order to have an actual run at the playoffs and an actual run at the division title, along with several of their depth players to step up for not just their quarterback, but for the entire team. If they can do that, I feel like they can finally reach the Super Bowl that they themselves have been blocking from since that 2020 AFC Championship game. But if they don't do that, then it's probably time to give Sean McDermott the boot after this season, because it should have been done after the divisional loss back in January.